Think about the last time you ate alone. Maybe it was lunch at your desk, eyes on a screen. Maybe it was dinner on the couch, nobody else home. Maybe it happened so often you stopped noticing. You ate, you were fed, and yet something felt slightly off in a way you could not quite name. That feeling has a reason, and the reason is ancient. For the vast majority of human history, eating alone was not a lifestyle choice. It was not a sign of independence or a productive use of your lunch break. Eating alone was a signal. It meant something had gone wrong. It meant you were sick or injured or cast out or left behind. It meant the group was gone. And without the group, you were probably next. Your body still knows this, and it is responding accordingly. The science of communal eating is one of the most quietly revolutionary fields in human biology right now. Researchers are discovering that the act of sharing a meal does something to the human body that eating alone simply cannot replicate. Not just emotionally, physiologically, at the level of hormones, immune function, digestion, and pain tolerance. Eating together is not a social nicety. It is a biological event your body has been expecting for 300,000 years. Robin Dunbar at Oxford University has spent decades mapping the social architecture of human life. His research into what he calls social bonding behaviors, laughter, singing, storytelling, and shared meals, shows that these activities trigger the release of endorphins in the brain. Not metaphorically, literally the same endorphin system activated by physical touch, by grooming, by the kind of close physical contact that holds primate groups together. When you share a meal with people you trust, your brain releases a cascade of chemicals that lower your stress response, reduce cortisol, and activate the same reward pathways that make you feel safe and connected. Your nervous system shifts. Your digestion changes. Your immune system actually performs differently. Eating alone does not do this. It cannot. The mechanism requires other people. Think about what mealtime looked like for your ancestors. Not the ones who built cities, the ones before that. The ones who lived in small bands of 20 to 50 people, moving across open landscapes, tracking animals, reading the sky. For them, the evening meal was not a task to be completed. It was the center of the day. Everything else orbited it. The hunt or the foraging trip ended when the food came back. The fire was built, the group gathered, and for the next hour or two, something happened that was as biological as sleep and as necessary as water. Stories were told, status was negotiated, alliances were made and repaired. Children were watched by many pairs of eyes at once. The sick were fed by others. The elderly were included. Knowledge was passed from the people who had seen more seasons to the people who had not yet seen enough. The meal was not just nutrition, it was the operating system of the group. Anthropologist Polly Wiesner at the University of Utah spent years documenting the fireside conversations of the Jew Hwanzi people of southern Africa, one of the most studied hunter-gatherer populations on Earth. Her research found that daytime conversations were almost entirely practical, about food, tools, work, immediate problems. But nighttime conversations around the fire, almost always centered on a shared meal, were something entirely different. They were about people, stories, the distant past, the imagined future, moral questions, the behavior of others, what it meant to be part of this group rather than another. Wiesner argues that this shift, practical talk by day, narrative and social talk by night around shared food, was a critical engine of what made humans human. The communal meal was where culture was built, maintained, and transmitted, one fire at a time, across hundreds of thousands of years. Your brain still expects this. The shift does not happen automatically. It requires the trigger, it requires the table, the fire, the shared food, the other faces. Here is what happens inside your body when you eat with people you feel safe with. Your vagus nerve, the long wandering nerve that connects your brain to your gut, shifts into what researchers call the social engagement mode. Your heart rate settles. Your digestion activates more fully. The muscles of your face and voice relax into the subtle patterns that signal safety to the people around you. Your gut microbiome, which responds to stress by becoming less diverse and less active, begins functioning differently. Chronic solo eating, particularly eating while stressed or distracted, has been linked in multiple studies to worse digestive outcomes, higher cortisol, and poorer nutrient absorption. Your gut is not just processing the food. It is reading the situation, and the situation it was designed for has other people in it. There is a concept in nutritional science called the cephalic phase response. It refers to the way your body begins preparing for digestion before you even take the first bite. Saliva production increases. Stomach acid is released. Digestive enzymes are primed. This response is triggered by anticipation, the sight, smell, and social context of food. Research suggests that the cephalic phase response is significantly stronger when eating is embedded in a social context. The body prepares more thoroughly when it recognizes the full ancestral pattern: the group, the fire, the food, the faces. When you eat alone, hunched over a desk, distracted by a screen, that preparatory cascade is blunted. You are feeding the body without fully activating the digestive system that evolved to receive the food. The pain tolerance finding is perhaps the most striking. Dunbar and his colleagues ran a series of studies showing that people who ate with others could tolerate significantly more physical discomfort than people who ate alone. The endorphin release triggered by communal eating was measurable enough to raise the pain threshold. Your ancestors who shared meals were, in a literal biochemical sense, more resilient to physical hardship than those who did not. The meal was not just feeding the body, it was armoring it. And then something changed. The Industrial Revolution reorganized time. Work moved indoors and onto fixed schedules. The midday meal became a break rather than an event. Urbanization scattered families across distances that made daily shared meals logistically difficult. The invention of processed food made eating a private, portable, frictionless act. The television moved into the dining room. Then the smartphone arrived in every pocket. Solo eating became not just common, but unremarkable. In many cities today, the majority of meals eaten by adults are eaten alone. The health data that has followed is striking. Loneliness researchers like Julianne Holt-Lundstad at Brigham Young University have documented that social isolation produces health effects comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It raises cortisol chronically. It suppresses immune function. It increases inflammation. It accelerates cognitive decline. Not all of this is about food specifically, but the disappearance of the shared meal from daily life is one of the most visible symptoms of the broader isolation that is reshaping human health in industrialized societies. You were not built to eat alone, not occasionally, not regularly, not as a default. The body that sits at your desk, scrolling through a feed while eating a meal that took 90 seconds to heat up, is the same body that spent 300,000 years expecting a fire, a group, and the low murmur of familiar voices. It is doing its best, but it is missing something, and it knows. The next time you feel that vague, formless dissatisfaction after a meal eaten alone, that sense of being fed but not quite nourished, that is not weakness. That is not ingratitude. That is a signal that is 300,000 years old, still firing, still waiting for the one thing that would finally quiet it. The food was never just the point. The people always were. If something in this video made you see yourself differently, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment below. Tell me which part surprised you most or which part you are still thinking about. And if you want more of this, subscribe to Simply Odd. A new video drops every week. The next one might explain something you have wondered about your whole life without ever knowing what to ask.